for coming to today's event. I'm Pei Han. I'm an interim education manager from Rockbound Art Museum. So today we're having this online sharing session on As You Go, Roads Under Your Feet towards the New Future project. So this project is a 3-year project that research inquiry, which is conceived and initiated by Biljana Sirek in 2019. It is intertwined with the research project Curtain that Rockbound Art Museum initiated, which the current Curtain exhibition in Hong Kong that RAM and Parasite collaborated on belongs to. This inquiry is structured as a long-term research project over a period of 3 years through researchers' cells of organizations, institutions, and individuals that Biljana will introduce on. And As You Go centered around raising unheard voices of shared challenges within different contexts, from China to Central Europe, from Ethiopia to Central Asia, through building collective knowledge, the organic research cells vary from small-scale individual and organizations to states and private museums to form a sense of intimacy within which participants thus present a whole new form of collaboration. Today, it's a pleasure to have partner cells from As You Go project to share their practices, projects, and collaboration. So we have participants here are Biljana Sirek, interdependent curator and founder of WCSCD. Biljana, do you want to say hi to the audience?
Hello, good evening.
And we have Laris Froger, director of Rockbound Art Museum at Shanghai. Laris.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
And we have Zenka Badovanes, curator of Moderna Galleria of Ljubljana. Hi, Zenka.
Hello.
And we also have Agram Kappa, interdependent curator of Astana. And is Agram here? Hi, Agram.
Hi, everyone. Yes, hi.
And we also have Nikita Choi, Chief Curator of Times Museum at Guangzhou, but she will be late, so she will join in 5 minutes. And we also have Jasvi Zhen, artist from Xiamen. Hi, Jasvi.
Hello.
And we also have Robel Temsken, artist from Addis Ababa. Oh, I think he will be late for a minute. Yeah. Okay, so we also have 2 co-founders of projects called Astrabas, who is Yababel Fantaye and Sydney Ashetu.
Good evening, everyone. Hi.
And Sydney. Oh,
yes,
Sydney.
hello, ni hao, ni hao.
Okay, so today we will first have an introduction of partner cells and As You Go project by Biljana, and then we'll follow with a panel discussion between cells. And after that, we will have Jessie and Robel, whose artwork is included in this Curtain Hong Kong exhibition. They will talk about their art practices, and then we will have Yababel and Sydney to talk about the Astrabus, their amazing project and the Astrabus trip they finished in May. So, and at last, we will have a Q&A session for the audience for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So this whole sharing session will last for about 2 hours. Yeah, so let's welcome Biljana to do the introduction, and let's start.
Thank you very much, Peihan, for coordinating this discussion and for introduction. And I would also like to thank Parasite for hosting this discussion tonight. I would also like to extend my gratitude to Laris Frogier, director of Rockbound Art Museum, for creating a space for things to emerge and be shared beyond usual habits of consuming visual arts as stated in a Curtain project. So I'd like Thank you for that. And I would like to thank all partners CEL who joined discussion and share their perception of the project, because that's personally very important. And we have Robel who just entered the room. So thank you, Robel, for joining. Thank you very much, Sinknech. Thank you, Zdenka and Aigerim for being here tonight. I'm speaking to you from Melbourne, and before I start, I would like to pay my respect to Bunurong and Urunjari people, traditional custodians of the land that I'm standing today and addressing you. I would like to acknowledge their relationality, respect to human and non-human world that became very important guidance for me during the pandemic. In these uncertain times that we usually define caused by pandemic, being a curator, friend, mother, wife, mentor made me think and struggle to imagine the new world that will unfold in front of us, filled with urgencies to practice of being different kind of human within the world. That different kind of human should acknowledge not only other humans, but also non-human life. Pandemic has taught me that we are all interdependent and that our every action must be based on that very interdependence rather than individuality. Working and thinking through the pandemic with peers, colleagues from different parts of the world made me understand that some of the core aspects of our way of life should be changed to practice that very interdependence. That is a very long process and probably will take generations to unlearn. Myself and a number of colleagues around the world, including Aigerim Kapar, Natasha Petrashin-Bacheles, Elena Serokina, last year changed our naming from independent to interdependent curator, as we think that truly describe essence of our mode of working. Epeli Hau-Ofa, in his seminal text, Our Sea of Islands, proposed to think about oceans between oceanic islands as a connection point rather than space of separation. The curatorial for me is that point of connection that oceans in his text perform and enable. And based on interdependence, I'll very briefly for 10 minutes introduce the project that we have been working on in last year and a half. Okay. As you go, Roads Under Your Feet Towards the New Future, as Peyhan introduced, is a long-term project and research inquiry that reflects on the shared challenges within a context of Balkan, East Horn of Africa, Central Asia, and China. It was conceived during the 2019 after my curatorial research trips to these places. The title of the project, As You Go, the Roads Under Your Feet Towards a New Future, refers to the roads. These roads could be understood as visible infrastructure built in a local context where project is situated, present in the metro lines, fast-speed trains, railways, and bridges. They connect societies and enable movement of people, goods, raw material, or faster extraction. The title also refers to the roads that we are building through the projects. Roads that are ours, built through walking with and thinking with, leaving marks on grass and flowers that could grow back and make our path invisible again. Our roads are playing between invisible and visible, permanence and transience. Our walk is slow and long, most likely done on foot, but it's not a run. It is a careful walk, trying to be conscious of the world under our feet, making each step lighter, acknowledging the world before. The importance of bodily knowledge I acquired by walking through the listening within these places was not only crucial for me understanding of the local context, transformative processes of industrialization, modernization that brought to these localities, but also understanding my own limitation that lead to shape the project the way we work today. Project is shaped through the partner cells. And they are What Should Curating Do from Belgrade, Times Museum from Guangzhou, Rockaband Art Museum from Shanghai, Robel Temes again, artist from Addis Abeba, Sinknek Hasetu, writer based in Addis Abeba, Denka Badominats, curator of Moderna Galleria, the Public Library in Bor, it's a small town east of Serbia, and Artcom platform based in Astana and Almaty. Research cells vary from small-scale, single-person organization to state and private museums. The configuration of cells did not come together due to mutual friendship. These cells came together upon my invitation to the inquiry. And that invitation was sent to cells knowing that they could recognize certain potential within the relationship and possibly to gain something out of it. That something is very different to each single cells. Each partner came with its own intention to learn, to unlearn, to become visible or invisible, and to relate to international community. What we all share is discomfort at how the international has been performed through contemporary art practice and a collective desire to create pathways for working and imagining otherwise. As a partner cells, part of us met in Addis Abeba in 2020, just before a pandemic started, to discuss how we will work together. During that meeting, we agreed to approach this inquiry as an exercise of working together for 3 years, creating possibility of establishing long-lasting alliance, or at the end of the year, rethinking about possibilities of our failures. During the meeting in Addis Abeba, we actually established that we have been working through within the inquiry. These commonalities include socialism, non-aligned legacies, new geopolitical settings, economical influences, being an agent of its own culture, and the recent COVID-19 pandemic. The natural position of cells and our pleasing instability redefines the notion of authority. It also opens up possibility of collaborative reflection, authorship, as well as the bliss of ignorance that in the presence of another mind is not so easy to achieve. This proposition opens a number not so easy to answer questions. How we might keep horizontality within the project among the partners of cells, as how we might go about beyond economical means within the project, who is contributing financially and who is not, how the labor is valued. These very practical inquiries lead to issues of how we find ways to work together across different localities, especially when there may not be the proper infrastructure in place to support such activity or even contemporary art in general. Is it possible to speak about solidarity across different contexts and on what terms, and how we might go about it? How do we imagine and develop different working rituals with each other through this process? Being in a pandemic seems relevant when thinking about the intimacy of cells and how we may perform the process of transformation towards a possible co-immunity. We are made to abide by social distancing. Relational space between the cells did not initially exist. It was built slowly from within a project, with tensions of creating the space being a constant challenge from the beginning of our conception, intensified by political, ideological, physical separation, as well as the local conditions caused by the pandemic and economic recession, and difficulty of coping with immobility that for those of us working within contemporary art sector was so crucial. Creating and nurturing that relational space for 1 year directed partner cells to respect the knowledge they may not have had access to recognize this and build trust in other partner cells in the way they talk about it. To acknowledge their own urgencies as well as the knowledge situated within different cells that are still not part of our individual knowledge structure. And this is the point where the spatial condition for multiplicity slowly emerges. And this is why for me it was really important to have all partner cells who had the time today to participate and speak for themselves within the inquiry. Since April 2020, due to pandemic, we employed the strategy dig where you stand And we have been working with 15 researchers across Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Ethiopia, Serbia, Slovenia, and China. The research inquiry has been developed trying to listen local urgencies and learn from them. The researchers communicated very actively with local cells, myself, and from time to time enter collective partner cells meeting. In struggling to make them visible during this short presentation from each research cluster, I have presented one image that tries to take you to that very space where research happened, but also acknowledging their importance throughout presentation. We have ended slowly first phase of inquiry with symposium organized together with Moderna Galleria in March this year. Through close collaboration with Rockaband Art Museum and their team on different institutional levels, we worked very closely with a number of researchers of inquiry, and here today we will have a few present and they will talk about their work. But I would also like to acknowledge research of Maria Glavaš from Slovenia, Chen Liang, anthropologist from China, who gave important contribution to shape, color, and smell of curtain, but also as you go inquiry. And these are some of the projects that you see in the images. And these are some of our main guidelines, how we work together. I addressed very briefly interdependence and horizontality, and I'm going to end with intimacy and opacity before handing it to Laris. To practice intimacy between the cells, opacity is needed rather than visibility. That intimacy defines how ideas are shared and to what extent. Visibility is defined and controlled by the way the Western economy of discourse works hand in glove with the global economy. Many of these localities situated on the margins of the global economy regain a momentum of visibility through geopolitical conflicts when during the pandemic as a core interest of a different global powers. Could a new visibility and set of geopolitics create alternatives to our existence, or it will uphold the extractivist capitalist logic done for so many years by Western European modernity is some of our questions. Edouard Glissant discusses the right to opacity as a right to resist being transparent by the gaze that constructs the other as an object. For Glissant, the right to opacity is not being available to be understood according to the Western logic. He is opaque, is not obscure. It is that which cannot be reduced. An opaque position for most of the partner cells seems to be an important position to take, especially given our present moment. Our opaque position relates to the size of cells, small and invisible, but diligently working and transforming. Think of the COVID-19. We try to retain our right to opacity through the proximity of working together in the hope that this process can open up new spaces through imagining differently. Giving the right to opacity and right to visibility as an active choice through the inquiry creates a delay in expectation to be visible and subsequently how that visibility is performed. That how is a tool for transformation. And I'm just going to read as the end of my introduction, Laris' quote and invite him maybe to speak from his perspective. On one of our roundtable discussions of a partner cells, he states, for our project, I think it's very important to raise questions that can challenge the dominant discourse and institutions, going step by step, learning deeper, not compromising, but also taking radical and decisive positions. Invisibility today is not to be inexistent, but is exactly the contrary. It is an act, a choice, a practice, a strategy of resistance and opposition that allows other forms of action and visibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Biljana. Thank you very much, Peyhan. Hello, everybody, and hello to my friends here in the group. Yes, As You Go is a very precious project, both for the Rockwood Art Museum and for the Curtin project. Maybe I can just introduce the different connections because it's related to deep research, and as Biljana was highlighting, is also related to intimate connections. And I really cherish this project because when Biljana came to me to propose this research, it was the starting point, but she already conceived the project and traveled to Addis Ababa with her friend Zanka and a group of people. And this experience was also very, I would say, um, uh, important in the way to outline the process of building together the project that can last 3 years, maybe more, but is how an institution can escape this kind of very, I would say, institutional production of exhibitions. So to take time to connect with people that we don't know yet, especially because of the pandemic. I met physically with Jasvi, but and Biljana, of course, but most of the other people from the cells I never met with. And I think is also something that we have to be aware of when we try to change the dominant aspects, either related to the contemporary art, always comparing the West and the East. We are trying to draw and to experience and to practice some path that we think is very important. So how can we build together some very specific issues or questions or debate, and how can we share from our own locality, from our own context, different aspects that can make some unexpected connections, and also the way we can support research. So in this way, the Rockwood Art Museum, as Biljana also stressed, is connected with a group of people that I would like to thank today, Jasvi Jane, Yabi Belfante, and Robel Temesken, and Maria Glavash, and Chen Yong. So we together try to analyze different situations. And what is also very um, important in this project is the connection between artistic practice, anthropology, science, and of course, curatorial practice that redefine or extend or open up different perspectives. And of course, it takes time. We also need to not to be always on the forefront, but really to work together and to work with a real audience that we can engage with the project. So because the project Curtain has also a very long um, 3 years project that include research, exhibition, performative events, and online journal. So we have different formats, and Curtain is about, I would say, opacity, transparency, obstacle, frontiers, passages, is about resonance, is about vibration, is about poetry, is about criticality. So I think when we talk about the curtain, I also connected with Biljana to check if we can have in the curtain project in Hong Kong the two artists, Jasvi and Robert, to introduce their work and the echo between the two works. I hope for the audience in Hong Kong has some also uh, uh, resonance and meaning. And because we are trying to support artists and researchers with like very also modest contribution. And we hope that in the future, this project can develop further with other artists, with new researchers, but it creates really a dynamic that is also very important. So yeah, thank you very much to all. I hope we can share more with the other people from the sales group. That maybe I can invite also Piliana, if you want to invite also some other people from the sales to talk about the project.
Yes, maybe I would like to invite Zdenka or
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Biljana. It has been a pleasure to collaborate with you. You invited me, I think it was still in 1919, to collaborate in this project when I was still a director of Moderna Galleria in Ljubljana, that has been involved in different, also similar projects, you know, or collaboration on horizontal level, for example, with the museums in the Confederation of Internazionale, European Confederation. So it is a confederation of the museum, but it always includes also different agencies, individuals, activists. It has been my, let's say, walk to refer to the title of the project, you know, that some parts we walk together, then we go, you know, different directions. We come, and there are crosses, there are, you know, different experiences. And I like also Curtin, Larry's project, and I think it's a nice metaphor for what we have been discussing. As I come from the Eastern Europe, you know, that was in the past divided from Western Europe with a wall, and after it was dismantled, we thought in the beginning of the 90s that there will now be new walls again. But you know, after the last refugee crisis, that we, you know, it is always about the refugee crisis in all around the world, of course, but here in Europe, we experienced it as a, in a way, a kind of repetition, building the new walls. There is barbed wire on the border between Slovenia and Croatia, and they think about it as a kind of new wall. Many tragic stories are related to these borders. So curtain would be a probably interesting metaphor for something that is not a barbed wire, that is not a wall, but it is something that we can, you know, hide ourselves behind when we need to be more protected, when we want to be more invisible, in terms that Biljana was saying. We know that non-Western territories have been instrumentalized and capitalized by the dominant art world that try to make these spaces more visible, meaning more, you know, capitalized. But the visibility is not, of course, only a pejorative thing. When I went together with Biljana to Addis Ababa in 2020, we learned a lot from the colleagues there who are also participants today at this round table, that visibility would be something very important for them. You know, that there are things that nobody knows, and they are very important, you know, and they are important also for us, for all the world to learn. So visibility is a double thing. It is, you know, a tool, but it is also, it depends who has this tool in the hands. If we are only the object of, you know, somebody who wants to make other visible, then it is, you know, then we are only passive object of other people games. But in Addis Ababa, we learned how important it would be for that community to build a stronger infrastructure. There are many efforts. We met artists, we met facilitators, organizers, curators, writers, poets, who inspired us as the city where we, especially with Biljana, we two who come from former Yugoslavia, that was one of the leading forces in non-alignment movement. So Ethiopia was a member of it, and there were many sculptures around the city, architecture built by Yugoslav artists and architects. So this is the world that disappeared. So the collaboration between Europe, at least part of Europe, and African countries in that time after the war was in a way more productive. There were more cultural, educational, economic exchanges than today. So the As You Go network serves as also as a way to stimulate better communication, cultural exchange, exchange of ideas, and of course to build alternative roads. Many things changed already only in 1 year since we have been collaborating together. Of course, when we were in Addis Ababa, we learned already about the cases, corona cases, but we still thought it was something far away and not so serious. But now we know what it means, how strongly pandemic influenced our lives, and it forced us also to think about our future differently. Many other things changed that are indirectly or directly related to pandemic in our part of the world, in former Yugoslavia, in the Balkans. Political situation changed a lot. In my country, in Slovenia, together with pandemic, we got also more authoritarian government that, changed also the institution as Moderna Galleria, which was before that changed one of the leading institutions in the Central Eastern Europe. And today is, it became kind of instrument of the contemporary government as other institutions.
Sorry to interrupt for a second. We have like 5 more minutes for the panel discussion session. Yep, just
okay.
to quick remember.
Yeah, thank you very much for reminding me on this. So I just want to conclude that the As You Go project somehow records also our lives. So if it goes some years more, it will be very interesting also to see how our lives, how our professional visions will change. According to what happened in only 1 year, we can see many interesting things.
Yes, thank you, Zenka, definitely. I would like to maybe invite Aigerim. And Sinknek,
Yeah.
if it doesn't drop, because
Hi.
he keeps dropping.
No.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Agirim. I'm from Kazakhstan. And right now I do my hiking on the mountains. So it's almost rainy now. So I'm interdependent curator, and I'm part of Artcom platform community. We are working together in Kazakhstan, and we joined As You Go project last year. We are maybe the youngest of the cells, and our project, which we do our research, which is part of As You Go project, is it secrets of Lake Balkhash. So we are studying the cultural landscape of Lake Balkhash, which is the biggest lake in Kazakhstan, which is now in economical, social, and ecological disaster. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, this year, the pandemic time was really productive with this collaboration through As You Go project. And we actually met and so many interesting people, project. And it's for us now, it's also the way to be connected with the world also through Zoom, but I hope next year we will meet each other physically also. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you for organizing this session. Thank you.
Agrim, you are very lucky. We want to go hiking with you.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a few words from Signe, who is part of the cells. Then we give the speech to Basti and Robert.
Hello, I'm Sinkna from Ethiopia, an author and a landscape architect. I joined this As You Go project after our meeting with Biliana and her team here in Addis. And I'm based in Addis, and our research focuses on beautifying Sugar project. This is a government, big government riverside development project, which is done in collaboration with Chinese government. So we are trying to study the impact of this project on the existing culture, on the natural ecosystem, and on the livelihood of people who are dependent on the river, as well as on the informal settlements by the river. I'm interested in this project particularly because it gives me the opportunity to connect to the bigger global artistic collaborations. I always imagined that we are all interconnected, but the story of the globe suddenly is the story of the voicey, the giants, the winners, and I would like this not to happen, especially as we go into globalization. I want the small, the silent, and invisible ones to find their expression and make the story of our global citizenship to include the stories of these minorities also. So I'm exploring this in my literature, and this this project As You Go will give me, I hope, an opportunity to connect to other artists thinking and working in this line. Thank you.
Thank you, Signe.
Yeah, it's important to precise that Signe is an amazing writer and poet, and he is also publishing a lot of books for children. So he's he's very precious. Thank you, Signe.
Thank you.
So maybe we can switch to the introduction of the works from Jasvi and Robert in the framework of the curtain exhibition. And please.
Okay, so I'll do the presentation first. Okay. Do you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. My name's Jasvi Zhang. I'm an artist based in Shanghai and NYC. And in my practice, I'm very much interested in creating situations with sculptural objects to invite engagement, action, or even performance from the viewers. So in today's presentation, I will introduce you Stories from the Room, my latest project in close collaboration with both As You Go and Curtain Project, which is currently on view at Parasite. Stories from the Room is a participatory long-term project that collects personal writings about the shared experience of living through the new normal. An open call is conducted on a rolling basis to receive writings from across continents with different languages. And all collected writings are organized into a growing archive that can be activated and physicalized in different localities with various forms. And it all started with an almost empty exhibition space in Kitakyushu, Japan. Contributors sent in their writings via emails, and we collect all the contributions, and we promise that every contributor will own a dedicated folder labeled with their name and their location. So folders will be expanded when receiving more contributions from the same contributor. And folders from the same city will be placed in the same box, and boxes from the same region or countries will be stacked together. And we placed a working station with a computer and printer at the center of the gallery space. So museum staffs play a big role in this project. They have to sit at a working station during office hours to work on managing the archive, and their duty includes replying emails, outputting contributions, meaning printing, and then labeling and maintaining the archive. So this exhibition was held during the outbreak of the pandemic. So self-quarantine became a thing and traveling was restricted between countries, and the exhibition space was open and closed repeatedly, responding to the local policy of the government. While the whole exhibition continues to grow and expand uninterruptedly. So in a way, this becomes one possible way of traveling, meaning having your writings representing you in a space that you can't reach. And it is also a way to realize gatherings that are both virtual and physical. So in this project, I'm rethinking the gap between on and offline worlds as a new territory that redefines the notion of physicality, distance, and connection. So soon after this, I was luckily invited by Biliana to join As You Go, Roads Under Your Feet Towards a New Future, and Laris as a commission of the Curtain Project. And because of this, Stories from the Room was able to travel to more localities, including China, Australia, Serbia, and Ethiopia. So open calls were conducted in different languages. Shanghai was the first stop. Life in China at the time was basically back to normal. No more online exhibitions, and people can travel freely to all kinds of public spaces. But Rockbund Art Museum, however, was in a state of half closure due to the renovation plan. So, and we all agree that this beautiful 5-floor historical building would work as a perfect container to house the archive. So during the busy art week in November 2020, we decided to have the museum building remain closed to the public, only allowing contributors come to visit by appointments as a reminder of the ongoing closure and isolation we still face in other parts of the world. So we only allow a very limited number of visitors at a time to ensure an intimate viewing experience. So visitors are guided by volunteers to walk up the stairs floor by floor and explore by themselves. Each floor is arranged differently with the overall atmosphere remaining quiet. So in this iteration, folders and boxes are made of copper, and these copper boxes are stacked into different shapes, scattered in different floors, leaving enough space for the audience to walk around between them. So in a way, the exhibition space becomes a stage. I pay attention to how to direct my audience behavior when they're interacting with my work. So as you can see, the work is set quite low on the floor, lower to eyesight, so that human figures become dominant when they're interacting with the work. And the folders are designed to be quite heavy, difficult to pull out. So visitors have to handle with care. And the way some of the boxes are stacked makes people feel that they're allowed to lean on it or even sit on it. So in this way, audience interaction with the work becomes a part of the work. As a process-based work, Stories from the Room welcomes a higher possibility for accidents and failure because it demands a greater degree of engagement from both the audience and the institution. It does really relies heavily on the institution and their resources and their working habits, their time and energy. So all these elements has been a great impact on the outcome of the project, which is the reason why each iteration of this project may seem very different from one another. So for the current group exhibition at Parasite, considering the limited space and resource I may have, I provided a special edition of the installation. So instead of displaying the entire archive, which is practically impossible for this occasion, I curated a selection of contributions from the current archives. So it no longer follows the geological clue. So this is a demonstration of the visibility of this work, both as an archive and as an installation. And last week, Stories from the Room launched its open call in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia with the help of our local coordinator, Sarah from Contemporary Night. We decided to hold open calls in local coffee shops, since those are the important social venues where people will rest and read regardless of their backgrounds. But the challenges we face includes the coverage of internet and the very large number of different languages people use, the popularity of written languages, and the current political tension. We tried our best to accommodate this project into local contexts with the help of the Seto and our volunteers. So this is the first time when the open call is placed in public space since the project started. So it is also our first time to include handwritten or recorded contributions into the existing archive. And we were very lucky to receive more than 100 handwritten contributions in about 4 weeks, which was very encouraging. And now the challenges for me has become how to blend in these materials we collected in Addis and what could the final form of this archive, if there is one. Okay, so that's it for my presentation.
Thank you, Jaspi. Thank you.
Peyhan, I would suggest that Astrobus continue, because I think
Yeah.
has an internet problem.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can switch to Astrobus, and then Robel after that. So I can briefly introduce Astrobus because it's related to education, and I'm a person from education department. So Astrobus Ethiopia is a project to stimulate a culture of scientific thinking in Ethiopia by promoting science, art, technology, innovation, education, and creating public awareness around this. By driving the buses, the project went to different locations in Ethiopia to provide an opportunity for the public to explore, learn, and understand the main elements of modern civilization and how these are realized. For example, how ideas are created, imagined, tested, mixed, visualized, transformed, and then applied to help improve the state of the world. In practice, scientists, astronomers, artists, writers, and filmmakers have jumped on the bus in Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, and embarked on a journey of knowledge sharing to many places. So in May, from May the 10th to May the 15th, 2021, Astrobus Addis Ethiopia 2021 have completed their third field trip. It's a 6 days research, and it reached 7 schools in 3 cities, covering about 3,500 students. So let's welcome Yababel and Signy, co-founders of Astrobus Ethiopia, to review this project in more detail and to rethink how we can give the localized support for the Ethiopian community and the reality of spatial distance. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Behan. And it's really a very good introduction. So I could just say like, okay, that's it, you know, it's very good. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm just gonna, so can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. So, so this year's Astrobus project was funded by, so the seed money was covered by As You Go project and RAM in collaboration, and we are very grateful for having that and starting the project, and also then raising after that from different localities, local institutes to support us. So in a nutshell, I'm just gonna. So in a nutshell, Pehan really gave a very good introduction about it. It is about kind of bringing scientists, artists, technologists as role models and traveling across Ethiopia to foster critical thinking and exchange worldviews with young students. And we really like this. The exchange worldviews is a very, very important element, because we want to exchange instead of only just give, learn, as well as have critically think about what did we learn afterwards as well. So not only just like we think we have the solution, but also just that we can broaden ourselves in the process. So conceptually, this is, so do you see just the screen only, or like in my screen, there are a couple of things. So do you see just the presentation only, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the vision of Astrobus, it starts in 2015 with the thinking, and then the first one happened in 2017, but the vision kind of has been the same. It is a country with a culture of critical thinking and citizens competent in the modern world. That's what we thought we could do with this project, and that's what we want to see. And then to achieve that, our mission is like to move, to inspire, empower, and connect. And in that process, we incorporate anything that has critical thinking, or that incorporates critical thinking in its element, and that is innovation, science, and art as main branches. But within them, there are many, anybody from areas that involve critical thinking we invite. And in terms of the kind of the interpretation of that, is that inspiration for us is, so we need to get the attention of anyone that we're meeting along our way. And that means to simplify, expose, and articulate, as well as relate with the kind of the culture and society values that are there in those localities. And then empower for us is something that the person who's inspired, or who we got the attention, needs to get something to kind of continue it. That means we should do something doable activities that the people, the students who are receiving, should be able to replicate and kind of at least have value in terms of by sharing it, they gain value, or they kind of by knowing somebody that they kind of have a pride and kind of motivation. So something that remains beyond just inspiration and connect, which is really the bigger sphere, is that of course we are traveling, which means we are connecting not only role models to students and also the culture to the role models, but also we're connecting multiple cultures together, Ethiopia being just quite diverse in this area. So there is this element of like having a shared vision, a shared culture, and a shared history. It's kind of, it brings and kind of connects as a main element. And that the different people who are traveling usually also have seen different parts of the world, different parts of Ethiopia, so they can actually communicate and kind of connect in this bigger sphere. So the principles, just the ones we would call the tenants, that we will not, like Astrobus, if it doesn't have, will not be Astrobus, is that the activities should be relatable or must be relatable in some form. So that means we must, like before we just go and show the activities, we must think about how are the people who are kind of seeing this, how can they relate to, like what is their life and their way of living, their way of thinking, and the kind of information that they have, how can they relate it in such a way that they get something? So this relatability, the role models as well should be like relatable in the sense that if they come from that area, it's better. So the closer it is, the relatable, the better. So such that we break the barrier of like, okay, because they have another opportunity or something like unknown. We try to break the unknown, which is that I can also do that. The belongingness mentality. And then we need to study and understand the local history, culture, and identity, such that we know that we're building, this is like our, so because we want them to respect what we do, and we want to respect also their values and their culture. And as much as possible, we also have to try and produce many of our materials in their language, so understanding and respecting again. And then on top of that, another value is that it has to be recorded and disseminated, whatever we are experiencing. So that basically every event is a research trip for us. And a lot of people from different parts of Ethiopia, as well as also people who live inside and outside. So we are now more than 80 just in the 3 trips that we went. These are all different in their areas, very respected. And the kind of the format is more or less, we go to an area and it will be just distributed. It's kind of an expo for the couple of like 4 or 5 hours. Just the students from different schools are collected in one area, and then they will just be able to see and interact with the team. So that's basically how it looks like. So events so far, so we had in 2017, 2019, and 2021 in these different parts of Ethiopia. So both in 2017 and 2021 is to the north, but one is to the kind of like very close to Addis, and the other one is deep north or the lower Omo Valley, which is a lot more cultural. And the 2019 one was to the north, to the until Aksum, which is the border with Eritrea. And practically, so this is the first thing we did, is to understand the culture and to know who are our audiences in the lower Omo Valley. So we went and viewed some of the kind of the cultural remnants, the historical artifacts, and then we also sit in the local village to understand the kind of the attitudes and values and all of that elements that we said in the principle, and we designed. And we visited some of the cultures that are remote, sometimes inaccessible, in this research trip to find relatable elements. And then the event trip was in May. And so this is the team who traveled. So 10 of them are artists, photographers, and we call it from the art and innovation side, and others are from science and engineering. So we were in total 22 people who traveled in a bus. And then once we are there, we had a number of activities. So the first, the activity that, for example, you will see in the right, in the left is, kids having the sun watching, like the star, like the sun watching, so they kind of see through a very specialized material. They could see the sun. Without that, they wouldn't be able to see, or they would damage their eyes. So this is the kind of smile on the first time, just they see sun for what it is. It's really like there are a number of pictures on that. I just only give an example. In the right, for example, what you see is that some of the artists, they give canvas, empty canvas, and colors and strings, and the students, what they do are just trying to bring these elements, so the artist will guide them. And then the right is kind of coloring, but in a different way. I will show you more on that one. So and then we travel. So that was in Arpamenj, and then in Konso, this was like the place. It was high school. Sometimes we go to elementary school, sometimes in high school, and sometimes we hold it in university, which brings both basically the elementary, the high school, as well as also the university students, because the activities are quite diverse. Everybody will find something they like, and depending on the audience, we also change. We prepared on that. And so there are, of course, like some activities, like in this case is how to start. So this is like filming, but how to start. The students would choose from starting from like selecting the actors to narrating, giving like the stories, building the stories, recording it and editing it, the entire process. So usually we try to show the process that excites them through their own way, but we only just guide them. And this is just one of those activities. And this is another one, which is like on music and coding. So basically what the students would be able to do is that they will have like a sensor in their hand, which is just in the form of an air drum. And then there is a code that's sonic pi. And by changing both, like, so the sensor is fed to the computer, and the computer, the code generates music, and therefore they can actually manipulate both the kind of the real that they have something, but actually it's not the usual drum that they know, that they hit something and they hear the sound, but it's kind of manipulated by the code. And the students would actually also change the code itself to kind of experience that feeling that what we are living at the moment is a lot of it we can't see, and it's manipulated through the code. So it's the kind of merging between technology and art element. And yeah, so this is, as you could see, there are bigger telescope to see in the background. For example, here you will see a big telescope that they would see the sun or distant objects during the day, and during the night we do stargazing. And yes, like some of them really, a lot of it, what I want to show is that it's this engagement that people, for the first time, sometimes they kind of know it, but they never seen the process. And here, not only they see the process, but they kind of participate in the process. And then, of course, like as a trip, we have certain issues and certain excitement. So that, you know, like some of the places we go, the roads are not good. So in this case, it was like we had to find someone to help us, to drag us from this dirt, like our bus was kind of in. And then at night, the team kind of comes together and shares the different experiences while cooking together as well. And also sometimes just like the community, it's not only just about the community, but also within us. Everybody doesn't know each other at first, so we build this team spirit, and a lot of projects among artists, between artists and scientists and innovators, it kind of starts there. And so there is this commonality. So, this time, what we managed to do also is that we managed to do exhibition. So we collected, so the material, the pictures that you see in the right are actually what is done by the students. And so then we collected them, and then the other ones that the photographers had also taken photographs from different, and we had this 2 days exhibition in Addis, where we had really a good attendance. And we actually we sold also some of them to take the money. If the material that is sold is done by the students, we kind of will give book to the school that they are in. So we know which school this material or this art is produced, and then we use that money. So it was like quite a different experimentation, but it was very successful, the 2 days exhibition. So I will just hand to Sinkana more to tell you more about the experience, because he's from that region and his experience as kind of a person, as part of the team, as well as also person who knows what it means to have this kind of events there. So Sinkana.
Okay, thank you, Abibal, and hello, everyone. So I will just try to give you the feel of the place and how different it might be for people from other places. At the beginning, I guess you remember concepts like civilization, technology, critical thinking, exchange of world views. These are important concepts, particularly in areas where you will find very diverse cultures, which are in a very small space, but very diverse. Even linguistically, they don't communicate with each other and these kind of things. And this place is a place of diversity. It's called a Mosaic of Culture. In Ethiopia, there are 81 ethnic groups, and out of these, 25 ethnic groups live in this area. So we are thinking of this area as like a very mosaic, diverse place, both culturally and ethnically, I mean, naturally. I was fortunate to have grown there, and my childhood is shaped with these cultures. My father was a policeman, so we used to move from place to place. That means I was moving from one culture or cultural landscape to another cultural landscape, or I was moving from one story to another story, like in the landscape of the stories, and that formed who I am today. As a storyteller, I didn't study in school. I didn't study storytelling, but this culture gave me what I have today. So anyway, we went to this place, and I was trying to reconnect to my childhood. I went out of this place a long time ago, so it was for me going back to my childhood. And this place is a very typical attraction for cultural tourism and for anthropologists, because there are people who have a very unique way of life that has not been changing a lot, even if some civilizing forces are infiltrating. Anyway, I'll try to tell you one hilarious experience as a child in one of our destination towns that may tell you how these places are remote both in space and time. I think, in grade 3, about 9 years old, and we were told that that night a film will be shown in a marketplace in this town, Jinka, our Astrobus's last stop. I was not sure what film is. I never heard of this word, and I was a loner. I don't communicate. I don't ask. I just went to this place at night, and people were eager, like a large crowd gathered around a truck, and on the truck there was some kind of machine which I didn't know then. Later I found that that is a film projector. People, like 2-3 people were trying to fix this stuff. I guess the machine did not work for them, did not run, but I thought that was the film we were supposed to watch. So I waited, and I was trying to find something interesting. Like during the day, we were told that this is like amazing thing. It's a film that is a new technology. But what I was seeing is just like strange machine and people trying to, move it around. So I waited for a while and then I gave up. It was boring for me. So I went home thinking that that was the film we're supposed to watch. And later, my brothers and sisters came late from the film place and they told me how amazing things they saw in the film. And I was mad because I mistook the machine for the film. So that was like maybe 25 or 30 years ago, and things did not change much except for the introduction of mobiles and TVs and some modern buildings in town only, but in the countryside, it still is the same. So I was thinking of this experience when one of our filmmakers in the Astrobus team was trying to teach the children from this background how to make movies. And for my surprise, some young people from these places were talking about the film they are trying to produce. But still, the countryside is untouched, or more or less untouched or unchanged. We did not have the opportunity to penetrate deep into the countryside, but the traveling team was hoping to have that experience to enrich this idea of cultural worldview exchange. But unfortunately, there was a time limit, and of course, there was also a limit in resources, finances. So we didn't go to the countryside, but in few places, we managed to see the local technology like pottery. Here you can see in the slide, people like traditional people making pottery and other technologies, local technologies. So that gave us the opportunity to learn from the local people. And also in one school in Konso, the student club, science and technology club, did some demonstrations of their own works, like medicine, traditional medicine, and some models of machines. Very interesting stuff. So we had this opportunity of learning from what is going on in the place, not only giving what we have. So this, for me, was a very romantic trip for reconnecting to my past memories, but also to try to inspire, to motivate people in these new forms, new developments in sciences and arts. That's my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Sankana. I think we can stop here. I think the next ones are more about past events, but I think given the interest of time, we can stop there.
I think maybe you can continue because we are ahead of time. So yeah,
great.
if you want to share about a little bit about the past events, that will be fine. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, so as I said, we had 3 events, and so it also shows you, probably the pictures can show you the kind of diversity within. So this is to the north, and also even if it's south, closer to Addis. So it's different. So this one was in November 27, where like a photographer prints his photograph that he did across Ethiopia, and part is that the students would look at this picture and write something. And then those writings, we also in 2019, actually, we did that, an exhibition out of the different texts that the students wrote by seeing the pictures. And the different things they see from the same picture, they will just evaluate, even within 2 friends, from public to private school, from kind of like one region to another region. It was very interesting to look at. And there we had also a number of kids who were kind of for the first time seeing what it means to see something that they can't see by eye, but suddenly it was just a day object gazing, but suddenly that something that was not visible, kind of they can see it through, and then they just look and normalize, and they don't see in the kind of the experiences, the feeling and the eagerness. And we had also a number of science experiments and tools where, basically in this case, we were studying about the property of this how lights kind of can give you more information from distant objects in this way using laser. Again, as you can see, the smile, looking at the sun is one of the things that it's very fascinating. It's just like people just know the sun, but then when they see it differently, it's always different. It's like the feeling is very, very infectious. And at night, we also had the university students for the first time, for most of them. And I can say that my own life kind of like, I went to astrophysics because when I was a second year student in the university, I, for the first time, watched the moon, and I thought, like, what? Like, the moon exists. I mean, before that, I've seen the moon, but it is different. Like when you see it by eye and then you see just those craters, and then you just look at it like, whatever they print in the materials are actually true. I think this relationship between knowledge and belief is something that we try sometimes. The real experience brings different context to it, even if we know the thing forever. And yeah, we had also some technologies, and a lot of it, as I said, we don't want to just give robots, but we want to kind of bring out the elements that are in it. Like, for example, how codes are influencing real objects. So in this case, they would code it and see the object itself moving. So it's kind of like sending that and kind of bringing out the process in different contexts. And we sometimes so this was like the music. So it was like we had a 3D pen and an air drum and an art, then they draw and they combine these three in the form of they try to just visualize. So they sign their own drawings through a 3D pen and they try to play the kind of what they see the color or the feeling. So it's much more trying to bring these different elements and making it like, okay, you can think everything is like, once you are able to transform something, you are able to give it a new life. That's the elements that we sometimes share. So this is the presentation that we have, like that kind of covers, and a lot of the pictures. I mean, I wish if there was time that I could show different elements, but I think this will give a good overview on what the AstroBus project is. And thank you so much, Pehan and all the team who organizes this, for giving us also the opportunity to tell our story. Thank you.
Thank you, Babel. Thank you, Signe. So I actually have several questions because I have been paying attention to this project from the start, and I really like this project. So I've learned that at first the AstroBus project, as its name, is mainly about astronomy, right? But later on, the vision has kindly changed. So what has been changed and why the vision changes? Yeah.
Yeah, so the project starts by curiosity. Like in 2017, we saw something similar, like it's called, I don't know what it was, like track something, but people just went across a trip in Senegal and Dakar. And then the pictures were shared in an email group that I have been, and just seeing the kind of the feeling of people. And as I said, my background also was like seeing things was something that influenced me. And so we connected. So the friends that I had were mostly astronomers, astrophysics, whatever. So that's why the name was like, okay, let's do just something that we would travel, that we would be, and the name was synthesized there. But then over time, it took 2-3 years of discussion and deliberate conversation with different groups. It evolved already there before the first project. But then we didn't want to change the name because we thought, again, the element of building a bus and thinking to go by bus to, the app is something, it's a whole process of like this. You need to be artistic. You need to be kind of like, so it represented a form of like doing something different and incorporating multiple elements. So we didn't want to change, but yes, it started as kind of first, like, let's take telescopes and just show people from that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And you shared about the past trips and also this one. that just finished in May. So so what's the difference? Do you feel that these three are very differently, or do you feel there's anything changed? And especially the third one is under the impact of COVID. Does that slightly affected? Yeah.
It did definitely. I mean, first from planning the project and not knowing. So every year, unfortunately, like the Ethiopian situation was also not that changing every time. 2017 was a different government, different thinking, and different instabilities. And 2019 was again very different narratives. And 2021 was, I mean, by far very different, right? So the planning and the thinking, the things that you would worry, in this case, we really were kind of not know whether even we could do it. So that's why we did the first pre-trip, understand the situation, talk to, so this is what we did differently. We were a lot more prepared to handle because this is a global situation as well, and we wanted to do it. So the pre-trip was very important for us to make sure, like, and many of the things we planned, we didn't. Like, we thought like we'll invite people over internet, but then we realized the internet doesn't work as much as we thought, and therefore we couldn't a lot of it. So it's that element, and then also the people, like, we went a much more untouched area, as Sinkana said. Like the north is quite more, I would say, involved with the technology, and it has been always in communication with the kind of the world, while the local areas that we went, like Jinka, around Jinka, it's, I would say, it's the most untapped, and kind of they also protect themselves from mixing, right? So some of the tribes basically just don't have outside contact. They still live, if you went just 300 years ago, they still live in the same way, right? The only thing you might see is that they might have like some decorations that have changed because the tools allow them. So yeah, there is a number of, and the exhibition, I would say, was very different, new element that we have. So that was very important as well. Like we didn't have a proper planned exhibition, but this one we planned it from the beginning, the exhibition. So we collected materials and kind of, that was very useful. So yeah.
Also,
the
way the artists were recruited this time is different. Previously, I guess it is through personal connection that the team was formed, but this time the artists, there was an open call for artists to apply for this trip, and through an interview and some processes, we selected a few of these. So this is also different.
Absolutely. Actually, that's a major one. We had an amazing number of applications. That shows us the interest as well from artists, and kind of in the past we were struggling. It was like, because we were, as Sinkana said, we didn't have that system. Now it was very important.
Yeah, so one last question from me. So do you have any plan for the next event? Do you have any plan for the future ones? Because I know this time you kind of kept a review, a diary during the trip, and I've seen from it like some of the students got the interest to several fields that they wanted to keep learning on it, but it might be hard because you don't have that kind of system. So, and also the kids are getting very eager on that part. So I'm wondering if you have any next plan, things like that.
Yeah, I think we do. So they are like, so the good thing about it is that the team, which is being formed every time, they also drive it. So in a sense, now there is a team who's trying to raise money, funding locally and internationally. So it depends. So we don't know, because it's we don't have like the luxury of planning 3-4 projects along, in time. So we only just so far, I think at least we only managed to just start from like when we get a seed money and then kind of plan it. But this time there is a group from the team who traveled who's actively seeking. And as I said, we sold also a little bit of the the photographers sold their picture and they donated. It's like a very small, but we kind of consider it as like, okay, it's an initiative that people can, you know, that the artists and us can contribute as well in this way. So that is, but it is, we plan the next one hopefully by the end of the year. But again, that all depends on how we raise the funding.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, we still have time, so maybe we can have other partner cells to add on or to ask questions, comments. Yep.
Or maybe some
Yes,
of the
please.
people have questions.
Yeah, maybe Biljana, before we turn to the audience, we can invite them to drop some questions. And I just want to give a few feedbacks because I'm really grateful to Yabebel, Sydney, and Jassi for their introductions. I think it's also important from a curatorial perspective, also to contextualize such projects, because the reason with As You Go and from the Rabun Art Museum, we are going along these artists and researchers is also very relevant in the introduction. And maybe also with Feihan, we can mention that the project introduced by Yabebel is also extended in the context here in Shanghai and China through the social media, because there is this importance to also share the culture. And I refer to Sikne also, who is very keen to share the density, the richness of the culture from Ethiopia, and also because of maybe poor access to information, but also because it can break many stereotypes from different contexts. So it's also the reason why I was so excited in this. And Yabebel is a data scientist, a very strong one, making different researches, and his passion for astronomy is also one of the many projects he's developing. And related to Jaspi, I think also from a curatorial perspective, there's something very subtle but also very deep I would emphasize is this connection with these voices that are not only text or archives. It's not only a display. When it had the project happened in Shanghai, I was quite moved because it's like the presence of people could not travel. They are locked down, but to have these voices in a physical space is something that it's difficult to formulate, but it's very meaningful. And then I'm very happy also when Jasvi uh, outlined the extension to Ethiopia that also expand the possibilities of the project in relation to language, because in Ethiopia you have the official language, but maybe Sydney you can precise how many different dialects you can have. The relation not only to writing or text, but this oral practice of the way to convey the voices that is be different from our own context. This I think also very meaningful. So thank you very much to the three of you to introduce these two projects. It gives you a bit of different angles that are making more complex and more meaningful the practice of solidarities. It's not only doing a research, it's not only exhibiting, it's really about how inter-individuals are trying to make happen something in connection to also maybe a small group of people or visitors. That was the case at the Rockburn Art Museum, in the public space, also in Addis for Jasfi, but these small group of people are also the result of something that I believe is very decisive and precious of how we cultivate this way of curating. I don't know, Diana, what do you think of this? But it's not only curating to make an exhibition, it's beyond this, right?
Thank you, Laris. So maybe we can, Liliana, do you want to add on, or maybe we can open questions to the audience to see if they have anything want to
I think it
ask?
would be nice to, I mean, there's many things to unpack, but I think it would be nice to have some time to allow questions from people who are listening.
Yep. Okay, so for the audience, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and to ask question, or maybe you can send the question to the chat so I can read that out. Either way works. Yep. Well, since our audience are shy, well, I actually have a question for all of you because I know that the way of working as partner cells is very different from other projects, and also during the pandemic situation, it's very important to support each other and to depend on each other. So I'm wondering if the way of working in this As You Go project change your own art or curator practice, or even your personal life, things like that.
Maybe I can start and then whoever wants to, because I'm not muted. Definitely, yes. I think myself personally, I learned incredibly a lot. And I think just because we went through the pandemic, just acknowledging that our like daily functionality is very different, and things that you take for granted for someone else are not, became extremely very important for me. So I think, for example, very simple thing that Robel joined like an hour ago. You've seen him, but he's has an internet problem, so you can't expect that people will be there, as we would assume us as a privileged ones. I think it also, for me, created a space for knowledge that I don't have access to, and to actually allow that knowledge to coexist, and be very slow in learning as the relationship unfolds. And as Denka said, it's also a record of life, So we are all very different from a year and a half ago when we started. Many things happened to all of us. Some of us got sick, some of us had COVID, recovered, some of us left the institutions, some of us started new institutions. It's been just a really incredible time to basically walk this together and stay connected, because we do meet every 2 weeks, and this has been very consistent. So for me personally, it's extremely important journey. Yeah. Sinknek, do you want to, because you're, I see you add on something?
It's interesting to see, especially in relation to COVID-19 pandemic. We receive information from the media, from the social media and stuff, but to feel how people in other places feel and how their workers and way of thinking was affected, is being affected by this pandemic, is very interesting for me, especially here, the local population. To begin with, when the pandemic came, people were afraid. Some people tried to be very cautious of going out. This restriction on movement was not highly enforced because it is a luxury for many people here, because there are people who just make their bread daily and they have to go out to the street and, you know, interact. They cannot be forced into like total closure. And we use, including me, we use public buses and other public spaces. The way we used to use them before the pandemic, but with some cautions like masks and stuff. But all these things changed when new issues became very important for the Ethiopian population. This is the way I see, or it's my take, so I may be wrong, but when, like, for example, the conflict in the northern region came, and when politics became very important, and when people thought they have to make this issue central to their lives, then COVID was not that important anymore. People still, like the media still communicate some alarming messages and the growth of the people infected and the casualties. But many people I see do not care about that anymore. You know, they just think, and their thought is mainly center around this politics, this economy, and the rising life. You know, life is becoming expensive because of the COVID, as well as because of the conflict and the politics happening. So anyway, I saw this change, and I thought that is interesting. When some things like this is politics, this is like about, you know, borders and regions and this stuff. These are artificial. We may think these are artificial things and less important than our lives. That is threatened directly by COVID, but people do not care about this anymore. Anyway, this is very interesting, but also it's very interesting to see how people function in other places. For example, for Juliana or for other people, I see COVID is very important and central, and not for me. Not anyway, because of other issues that I think are more important than COVID. Anyway, this interaction and the interaction, local interaction, as well as the field from abroad is interesting, and this happened or was made possible because of this project.
Thank you.
My phone is out of battery, so I'm not sure how I sound right now. There might be
Okay.
but I just wanted to say thank you to Larry's for warm words. I had a lot of doubts in this project in the beginning, and every time I think of what you said about this project, it really encouraged me to push it forward. And thank you, Juliana, for pushing me forward in the whole process. I always hesitated to mention this project that's directly related to COVID-19 or our quarantine life, but it does started as my eager to understand how people are living through or going through this life, which was very difficult for me personally, and I think the past 2 years has gave me big lesson about how to carry on with life. And I just like how I deal with this project, I work with a lot of limitations. And in the beginning, it might feel like compromises, but I don't see it as that way anymore, because no matter what came out as a result, it is shaped by the time and the space that we all share, and is the result of all the consequences, all the reasons that happened before this. So I'm just willing to accept what comes out of everything, and I stopped to make long-term goals since last year, and I think, yeah, COVID and quarantine, it just totally shapes how I view the world and life in general.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you. Is there any question from the audience? Okay, if not, maybe we can wrap up here. And thank you everyone again for coming to this event, and hope all of you have a good weekend. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peihan. Thank you all.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.